So today we are live with Tom Kender, CEO of Subchondral Solutions. They have a clever implant to delay total joint replacements in some patients. Tom's a relatively new member of BoneChat, and we're going to do a deep dive into Subchondral's technology, the business model, and talk about future funding options. So I'm handing the mic over to Tom, and you should see his first slide.
Good afternoon, everybody. And thank you very much, Tiger, for the opportunity. I've enjoyed listening to BoneChat. I've learned a lot, and so it's been very useful to me. So Subchondral Solutions, it's a 10-year-old overnight success, started by a surgeon with the objective to address the failures of oats and microfracture after whatever period of time. When I say it's a unique approach, it's really we're looking at the foundation and then working up to the roof. The bone involvement is a key part of this. That's why it's named Subchondral Solutions, and we feel that that's more important than a lot of people give it credit for, even though it's been in the literature for 10 years. So I'm going to go into really an overview of the company. And then I can go into some more deeper dive on the technology. The company's been around, like I said, since the first submissions for IP was in 2012. Company was formed in 2014, and we've had a series of FDA clearances. The implant itself is titanium. So that was our very first grant, was with the FDA clearance was with titanium by itself. Did an animal study, showed that we had great type 2 collagen coverage in a short period of time. We went ahead, next was to coat it with hydroxyapatite to accelerate the bone remodeling. We found the same thing. We found that the cartilage generation was faster with the HA. And then most recently, I guess it's been about a year, that we got the third FDA clearance, where we were able to go ahead and use the implant as a basis for a scaffold or an augmentation. And what typically the docs are doing is they're using a acellular dermal graft. We provide that. RTI is our partner in that. And so if that's what the doc decides to do, suture that down. It's probably 80% of our cases are done that way. Implant can be used by itself or with this augmentation. The part of the discussion, or primary part of the discussion today, is really funding. And I know everybody's been through that. We've been very fortunate to get where we are in the market with only a $6 million raised so far. The 25.5 was our post money from our last round. And that's a good thing and a bad thing. And we'll get into some of the details on that. The source of funding has been primarily private investors. I've done the startup since '94. And so I've had some successes, obviously some failures. Is kind of how this goes. But I've had a group of people that have made money a number of times with me. So that's my go-to. And luckily, they've seen success, so they continue to come in round after round. The managers, the management, the senior guys still maintain control at this stage. We need about $3 million right now to execute our current plan, and that really is expansion in the sales and marketing area, inventory ordering size. Our cost of goods are, we have an 80 margin now. We can approach a 90 margin, which is pretty impressive. By being able to acquire inventory in larger quantities. We do have some clinical studies that we would like to get into, as well as expanded regulatory, joint-specific regulatory clearances, and then we have some R&D that we want to do. So that's really just an overview where we are today and where we'd like to go. My team's a pretty strong team. You see me up in the left-hand corner, Cheryl McCoy. She's our CFO. She's actually had 3 exits. Q-Fix was one of the more recent ones that she sold to Smith & Nephew. There was a couple others. I think she has a Stryker exit and an Innovus exit. And they were earlier stage technology. Matter of fact, they weren't even on the market. So She understands that process. Derek D down in the bottom left, he is the surgeon that started this whole thing. He's a sports med surgeon. He's the one who was seeing these patients come back with failed microfracture or failed OATS. You know, high caliber guy, good background, USC, Stanford, UCI. And he's been involved with a little other development, but this has been his primary thing for a while. Jordan Piana's 5-year Arthrex guy. He's been with me for 4.5 years. He's done a great job. He's kind of running around with one hand tied behind his back, so we just don't have the resources in the field. Chris Maurer, again, U.S. Surgical. He's been our chief engineer. He's had a number of things like TISSEAL and a couple of things that he's been behind that have been successful. Jim is a QC guy. I won't go into any much more detail on that. And probably a lot of you know Ty Lee, biomechanics PhD. So Ty is one of our founders. We use his lab for a lot of folks. If we can fight off Smith and Nephew and Arthrex and some of those guys that are using on a regular basis, Ty's been published about 450 times. So he's been very involved in orthopedics for a long time. So the market, a reason I show this to you, you guys all know how big the market is. The unique thing about us is it started off as a sports specific device. You know, again, obviously you need data to really attract sports med surgeons, and you're going out to the market brand new, you know, you don't have the data. So we came across one of my investors that he has a co-investor. It's a surgical DPM or a surgical podiatrist. And he asked me, he said, have you guys tried this for Cartiva revisions? It's like, okay, what's Cartiva? That's how much we knew about the foot and ankle market. Well, we were able to jump into that market pretty quickly. You know, the barrier to entry, even with limited data, we could proceed. And so we were doing that. And that's probably still about 65-70% of our business. But it's, you know, the Cartiva revision, that's all first metatarsal. Products being used for that, lesser metatarsals. The tailored dome repair has been really big for us. That's probably approaching the same size as the MPJ. So when you look at this market, so that's the foot and ankle side. Then we've been able to move into the upper extremity. The implants being used in CMC arthritis procedures. And the thing that's a big advantage for us is we can spare the trapezium. So the implant can go in the base of the metacarpal or at the trapezium. And sparing that trapezium for you that have been in hand and wrist area, maintaining your pinch and grip strength is really key, right? So when patients go through and you remove the trapezium, which all the other procedures you need to do, you compromise that pinch and grip strength. And then we've talked about the sports medicine market a little bit. So it's a big opportunity for us. Being applicable in all these different areas is a good thing and a bad thing. So it's kind of like, what are you, right? And where do you get the resources to grow into those markets? We have about 120. This is I think this was done in February or March. We probably have about 150 surgeons. Our total number of surgeries is about 650 now. So the implant totals, the reason there's a difference is because sometimes multiple implants are used in the procedure, so that number is going to be different. So it's probably about 750 implants. We're doing it all those different areas. We are getting really good insurance reimbursement. We have a bunch of CPT codes that we can use, and because we are one of our sorry, I got to move this out of my way. One of our basic clearances is on fracture fixation, and you know, in the subchondral bone, the bone edema a lot of times has trabecular fractures, so the guys can get away with billing for fracture codes as well as the procedure codes. We're in about 120 hospitals plus and surgery centers, and that's kind of individual facilities. We have landed 4 national contracts, including the VA, Vizient, MGH, which is not a national, but it plays a big role. That's a Harvard group. And then we have 3 GPOs that are in process. We are nationwide. We just don't have the service to expand in certain areas. we've doubled in size every year. We've been on the market since 2020, May of 2020. So right now we're 4 years almost exactly out. But we've been doubling in size every year. This year versus or last year versus prior year, we were 174% in growth. Clinical evidence, 4 years of data, 16 posters, number of abstracts, peer-reviewed published studies. Like there's 3 of those. And then we won a number of innovative awards. So at AAOS, we won an innovation on our use of the implant in Mill-Sachs. Are named one of the top 10 innovations in podiatry today. We got the Vizient contract because we won the Innovative Device Summit. And then we also won an award at the Western Orthopedics for innovation competition. So, we're getting recognition out there. Let's see, why is this not advancing? Okay, there we are. Sorry. So now we get into the discussion, into discussion on funding. So here's how we've gone about it. So at the exploratory stage, when we're really looking is solving an existing problem, this is primarily done by Derek. What is the market size? Is the idea going to make a difference? Is it a small difference or a large difference? And then looking at, okay, is there IP that we can wrap around this implant? What is the distribution plan, and what, is this a unique customer? How do we approach that? Is this going to be niche, or is it going to have a much broader application? So, right now I say funding source is you got to invest in that. That's what happened with us. We did have some business partners, but it's a pretty small investment to do that stage. Once we got beyond that, when you start gaining your patents, working on that, your prototypes, regulatory clearances, that's a lot more expense or higher expense. And what we use is friends and family, those investors I mentioned early on. And then obviously, you need to be involved with each of these rounds, I feel. And so that's what I've done. At startup phase, building the company structure, the cap table, getting securing the IP, adding to that IP, that costs us about $750,000. And then our pre-market size, we start off with a Series A. You need to have sellable goods. You need to get into the customer launch, your strategy for going to market, and you have to have a proof of concept at least. That was an animal study for us. And our funding sources again have been the high net worth guys. Colleagues, we have a number of surgeons that have invested, and then we have some distributors that are investors in the business. Getting them to buy in and have some skin in the game's helped us.
Tom, what year was Series A?
Series A would have been, I joined in 2019, August of 2019, and Series A was already complete. I'd opened up Series B.
Okay.
So it was right before I arrived.
About 5 years ago. Got
it. Yep. So then we launched. So we did another round of A at A1, raised 1.5 during that. Series B raised 1.9. Series C 450, and picked up some debt. The reason there's those increments is we had a lot of interest, and we actually had early stage offers. And so I was trying to bring in just enough money to maintain, try to not to dilute my cap table, but get to these milestones. There's certain things, Stryker would tell us, or whoever would tell us. And so we were trying to get to those things. And at the end of that, was it enough to exit at a valuation that we thought was attractive? Answer is no. With the valuation, to get the offers, yes, but the valuation, no. So the growth capital has been primarily equity. So it basically tells you what we've done. We took on some debt, and I really didn't want to, but we had to. So we have some debt in the business right now. Again, my funding sources have been, pretty similar. We have a little bit of institutional money, not at the level that you would think. Whenever you see institutional, but we've had some of that. We have some strategic investment, again, just not a lot. Where we are really looking right now is to take this thing to a new level, and we've really settled on going to do a reverse merger into a public shell. And so we're racing along that. There's a lot of risk with that, but there's some really good success stories. I've been working on that for about 6 months. Where we've got we have the term sheet from a big New York fund, which I think will help us down the line. It helps us right now to really start to build out the business like we need to. Complicated. We should have that thing closed by probably the middle of July. So we're not that far away. Where we've run into issues along the way is that our valuation is never aligned with the round of funding. And, right now we're at a 25, we've been raising on a 25.5. That's what we closed the last round. The institutional guys really want to get in, when you're 6, 7, 8, 9, right? And, for us, we've had a lot of opportunities with that, but pretty soon, you've had hand over the keys very quickly. And we didn't want to do that. We thought we could build more value before we have those guys come in. So it's kind of chicken and the egg. For us to continue to raise, because we don't have very much from an institution, our credibility is not there. Question always is, okay, why didn't you go that route? And pretty much what I just said is why we didn't go that route. The other thing is, it's kind of like, what are you guys? We have broad indications. Are you, a foot and ankle company? Are you a sports company? What are you? So I've addressed some of that and basically built out 3 different divisions, and with products with different descriptions and so forth and different packaging, so that we can do a deal with one of the big foot and ankle guys, or upper extremity guys, or sports. There aren't that many companies that have divisions, as you guys know, in every one of those areas. So for us to get proper valuation, we have to have somebody that's going to give us credit for all of those, we believe. Let's see here. Why isn't this sliding? All right. So with that, opening up discussion, I can get into some of the additional technology and give you some input on that, or some to show that to you. But I really wanted to get some input on what you guys have done. You see how we've gone out and raised money. Any ideas, any experiences that you'd like to share? Is that all right, Tiger?
Yeah. Open it up. Let me ask the first question. How far are you from break even, Tom? If you're double sales again this year?
The 3 million gets us to break even, and that break even is at the end of 2025. Assuming everything works, right? All of the sales line and so forth.
Yeah.
It could be a little earlier if we got to a little bit higher raise, because we could buy that inventory at a higher volume.
And if you were, you can't see organically getting to break even?
No.
Okay, got it.
Nope. Need the capital. I need people. I have 2 regional managers trying to cover the entire country. You can only go so far. And if you look where our regionals are, it's where our business is the biggest. No surprise, right? We've gone through a lot of the distributors, guys that you probably all know, and we pay a lot. We have above market compensation. The value of the product is where our ASP is 3,500. You compare that to a total. We're above what most of the totals cost. We're about a third the cost of a oats. Obviously, we're more expensive than a microfracture. And some of the new products like CardiHeal and stuff that is coming to the market will be at a third or less than half for sure of the value. But we're generating, the reps are making $1,000, $1,100 in each case. So it's worth their time. But when you get into these distributors, they're already making their money somewhere, right? And this is a little bit of a slog, because it's you're teaching docs just a new mindset. Instrumentation is the same instrumentation that they're used to. The procedure, nobody gets surprised by the procedure, but it's a new product, and so it takes a little bit more effort than what these distributors are accustomed to.
So we previously talked about not only selling your own product, but maybe licensing the technology. Yeah. So you wouldn't have talk through that with the group.
Sure. So I have 2 deals right now, really going to a private label. for us, that's fine. We get 80, 90 direct reps. It's under somebody else's name. That's fine with us. And so in a sense, that's really a license. We're trying to keep it in the distribution model, private label, because that doesn't give them the license, gives them the license to the marketplace, basically. So we've looked at that. We've got 2 deals that I think at least one of them will come through on the private label side, which will answer a lot of my problems. The purchase of inventory up front, the margins for us, because they're so high, it's good for both the company that's going to do the private label, and it makes us money too. So it's a win-win that way. It's interesting because it's the same IP for each one of those areas, right? So, I've thought about pulling all the IP, putting in a holding company. We've done some of that, consideration. I think the best way, unless it's somebody that operates in all the divisions and willing to give us the valuation we need, I think this is going to be the way that we're going to need to go to grow the market to where we think it can go.
Okay, who can ask the finance strategy questions or answer those? Who wants to go first? He's talking about strategics, he's talking about licensing, he's talking about tapping into the IPO market, but he only needs 3 million.
And that public shell brings me to the 3 million plus a
Yeah.
whole new group of folks to go after as far as the funds. This is a well-known fund that's coming in and funding this shell. That'd be the first tranche that will get us to where we need to go. So it sets us up pretty nice. This brings on a whole series of new challenges. Public company.
Yeah, it's expensive and adds a lot of complexity.
And you're at the vagary of the marketplace, right? So you have a lot of control. Somebody needs to get their money out, and it can rarely have an impact on you when you're a small company.
Yeah, talked to Treese Medical last week. They dropped 60% in one day or something crazy.
Well, you follow Treese and Paragon. It's one of those things where they're way off of their IPO. That's for sure.
Yeah. All right, Ted's first one up, and then Alyssa. Oh, Ted dropped out.
Hey, no, I'm still here. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Tom. Great
Okay.
presentation. The public listing, is that via a SPAC? Is it a SPAC deal where you're
It's a merger into a public shell that's a virgin public shell. There's never been a company in there. It's as 2 shareholders, one of which is a SEC attorney. They've been doing this for 25 years. So we don't have any of those trailing liabilities. And we've got the New York fund that's come in and funded that. So it's not like we're moving into it and taking cash off the cash that's left in that company. So we just don't have any of the issues with that. When we hit the market, it'll be under our own ticker. So it'll look pretty good. It'll be listed on the OTC QB. So, our next thing is if we're successful, we uplist to the NASDAQ. But that's going to be a 3, 4, 5 year time frame with success. That's going to be the thing. Are we going to be able to hit our numbers and continue to develop the business?
Yeah, no, the reason I asked the question, just going public, doing an IPO, everything that comes along with that, Tom, at this stage, every company with trying to build revenue and infrastructure scares me.
Yeah. No,
and how much control, do you give up, in that deal to the New York, the existing company?
Right.
But I understand the challenge is you're like a lot of people struggling to raise, angel and private investor, or certainly institutional money in orthopedics is challenging. So I understand you have to look at everything to kind of keep the lights on and get to where you want to go. It's just the IPO thing is just, it's scary.
Look at it this way, Ted. Those are really good points. So our current valuation at the close of the last round is 25.5. Getting an institution to come in anything less than 10, right, is pretty difficult. And they're going to knock down that valuation anyway. And then you bring in 10, so you've lost control, right? Essentially. So that the public piece is going to be a similar deal, but we're not going to see that. We're not going to see the dilution up front, the way this is looking. I mean, we'll control 83% of the entity when this thing goes live. So we've been able to maintain that. Now, obviously we'll get diluted as we sell more and so forth and bring in more folks, but it's a pretty good starting point, I think. What do you think?
Yeah, if you keep that level of control, and if you're able to get the money, I think execution is going to be key to get
Absolutely.
to that break even point in today's market, to show that. And ultimately, the question is, what do you and the other investors want to see in an exit? Is it Stryker or Smith and Nephew or someone coming? It's probably not Smith and Nephew, because they just did their Agility,
Right.
acquisition. They're just trying to, swallow that. But the other question I had was, what are you? You started out and presented, a solution to oats and microfracture, and my mind goes to knee, and then you show, foot and lower extremity, upper extremity. You said that 70% of your current revenue is lower extremity.
Right.
Some kind of clear focus,
Mhm.
on that. I think creating the divisions is good, but I think a PR campaign to kind of put a crystallized message out about Subchondral Solutions and how you're focusing. If you're doing so well in podiatry, I mean that. And then that's where the bulk of your sales are, then you really focus your message around that potentially. But those are the kind of questions that I have up front.
Sure, and and those are really good points, and that's a part of we struggle. That's why I think these private label pieces, the same technology in two of those verticals. It's a little bit different technology in the sports side, because it's a peak implant that we're getting approval for, and that's one of the things in the knee that a lot of the guys like and want. I lost my train of thought. But the question is, what are you? And that's what we run into. Oh, the thing I was going to point out is the DPM market, high volume, a lot of players in that. The challenge with the DPM market is somebody walks into your OR. We were with a big name surgeon using the implant in the knee at Cedars about 2 weeks ago, and one of our surgical podiatrists peeks in and goes, "Oh, hey, are you using that podiatry product?" Because he's also a user. So it's like, that hurts. And so anyway, Salomon, they knew each other, so it wasn't a big deal. He was kind of a play, but that is a big issue. That the thing that we run into with DPMs, they don't routinely do MRIs. And when you're looking at bone involvement in any of this osteochondral disease, you really need to do an MRI. So most of these cases are being done off of an X-ray. So in an X-ray, you're not going to see that bone involvement. So it's really hard. As a patient, I've been in cases where the patient, when you get to the joint, the cartilage coverage is pristine, but that patient has problems. And that's what you usually do. When you look at the MRI, you'll see where that pain's coming from. And it's that bone involvement. So that's what we've run into in foot and ankle.
Yeah. I think there's a few other questions in queue. I don't want to let Alyssa.
Let's go to Alyssa next and come back. Yeah.
Sorry, I get it a little interested. First of all, I would highly, highly, highly recommend not doing an IPO. Having worked for a smaller company that went IPO, the amount of cost is not advantageous for the amount of effort for the money that you're going to get. That being said, I've read two startling statistics. In Q1 of 2022, VCs, we are now down in 2024, 95% in funding. Based if we're comparing to Q1 of 2022. The other statistic was VCs are holding on to, based off of a Wharton study, I believe it was $350 billion, the largest in history. So VCs, unless you're extraordinarily lucky, I would definitely work around it and focus attempts to raise capital outside of those. Which there's nothing wrong with that either. I mean, if you're getting 7% in a money market savings account, you know, you got to be
Yeah.
smart with your money
Right.
and your people's money.
Yeah.
Secondly, if you'll switch to the next slide, I saw a bone slide.
Oh,
I'm
sure.
interested to see why why this is being revised versus Cartiva.
Okay. Yeah, a good point. So there's a couple of things. We are a guided procedure, and you can hit anywhere. This is a first metatarsal, so you can go anywhere on this head. You can see this is on the lateral, right? Or medial, it looks like. So you see the lesion. The guide wire is put in the heart of the lesion, so you don't have, you don't have some of those issues. The bone that we resect, you can see there's a large plug in the center. We're only take out enough bone to accommodate the housing of the implant. And when we're doing that, it's basically a circular osteotomy. It's decompressing the bone. When the implant with the graft is all done on the back table. And so when it's ready to go in, it's a complete augmentation there. And it's threaded in over the guide wire, and it's threaded into that into the opening that we've created. And so there's a lot of control. So if you look at a Cartiva, obviously it's a material that can change, it can subside, it can piston, and that's what they've found. Also, it's not allowing the blood. When you create that opening, the area around it, the bone really gets damaged. We've seen a lot of that where it's basically dead bone around the Cartiva in some of these revisions. So we're able to go through, use the coring reamer, go back in, create that, get that bleeding started again. And then the implant it's a titanium coated hydroxyapatite, so it's not going to move around. We've done serial radiographs on about 150 cases, never seen migration, never seen cystic changes in the bone. And once it's threaded in, it's not going anywhere. That because you can dial it in, you can control the graft, the level of the dermal matrix, to where you perfectly align that with the native cartilage. So at time zero, you got a functional repair. And you can see over here, this is what it looks like at the conclusion of that case.
So are you supposed to bury the implant?
Yeah. The implant's about 5 millimeters, 6 millimeters below the subchondral plate.
So I get concerned about that. So I worked in foot and ankle for quite a few years.
Right.
And my concern is because it's not a balanced joint,
Mm-hmm.
meaning you can get subsidence from the PIP because you've overburied it, because you've buried it. I'm not a big fan of PEEK. There's some studies out there that demonstrate pseudoarthrosis from it, but PEC might be a better option because it's porous. But are you guys looking at PEC at all?
We did look at PEC, and I can't remember why our engineer said that wouldn't be appropriate for us. The implant out of PEEK, it's fully fenestrated on either side, so it's allowing the blood to wick between, through the fenestrations, and it's a HA impregnated PEEK.
Okay.
And so reason why in PEEK won't be applied to these areas, that's not the concern. The area where there's concern is burning bridges and a total joint, right? A total knee, right? And so they're not going to be able to cut through this titanium. So depending on the depth of their cut, this could be in the way or could not be in the way. And you're going to have to use a trephine to get this thing out. I mean, it's fully integrated into the bone. So that's the real pushback that we get in knees at this point. We just haven't spent a lot of time in that because of that. Now we have some big hitters that have really come along, and it's interesting to me because we just haven't put a lot of effort in that. But everybody who uses this, they said they'll never do another oats, and because of this control, they're not trying to get it. On a press fit, it's hard to get it aligned with the native cartilage, and you're able to do that. You can match the curvature of the anatomy, and you can dial it in, dial it back out. So it gives them a lot more control, and it's guided. right? So you're running into, it gives you some additional benefits. But that's where the peak will come in, is primarily knee.
Got it, for revision. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
just so they can revise if they need to,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, Elizabeth is up, and then Corey.
Okay.
Yeah, so Thomas, I was wondering, given your concerns about the DPMs, are you trying to perhaps reach out to them less, market to them less, and switch over to more foot and ankle surgeons? And additional question, of the roughly 150 foot and up surgeons you have now, how many are foot and ankle specialists?
Probably 75. It kind of matches our revenue model, right? Our mix on our revenue. We have Mike Coughlin, Rick Furkel, Sam Adams. We have some of the big names, Carol Jones. What we've found is the foot and ankle MDs, they don't want to do toes. They really want to do more difficult procedures. And so, in the hindfoot, we're doing the talar domes, and you can reach about 70% of the head arthroscopically. This is all designed for arthroscopy. Obviously, it's for the knee, so they can do that, and that's where their interest is, and that's where they've used the product at this point. But we just haven't. It's just not a wow factor to a lot of the foot and ankle MDs because they don't deal with this.
Okay.
I mean, is that your experience? I mean, again, you guys have been doing this a lot longer than I have.
All my MDs did toes.
They did.
Yeah.
Okay. We haven't come across.
They would combine them. Yeah, they would combine them with midfoot, triples, and so on and so forth. But they all did toes.
Okay. That's definitely not been our experience. I'm glad to know there's a possibility out there for that.
I think honestly, what might be a need to overcome is the fact that it's a dermal matrix on the adjacent bone. The dermal matrix has been, particularly RTI dermal matrix, has been around for a very, very, very long time. I mean, as long as I'm aware of it, probably at least 30 years.
Right.
And there's a lot of intel about dermal matrix and the scarring that results from it. And it might behoove you, if you want to get into that market, is to use a different type of polymer for the end cap.
Gotcha. Okay. That's good advice. One of the things that, obviously we have to show what's happening to that graft. And we have guys using prochondrics. We're agnostic to what they put on top of the implant. And we don't care if they put anything on the top of the implant. Because the studies have shown well, and we have about 20% of our cases are done without that. I'll show you, this is a knee. And you can see that bottom right-hand side, that's what it looked like 28 months after the implant was put in and the graft was integrated. And that's a Olympic volleyball player, AVP volleyball player. So she actually is 4 years out on May 27th. So
do you have any so like with CartiHeal, they have their data shows like 85-year-old patients having these same type of results. A volleyball player who has good bone mineral density, high blood flow, they're going to be the best you can possibly get. So if it were me, I would show a demonstration of older patients with poorer bone quality, lower blood supply. I love the fact that you guys address blood supply, because that's the reason why you're getting tumors underneath. These companies are getting tumors underneath their implants. Right.
It's a really good point. So 2 ways, right? We measure Coues as our primary, Lysholm, but Tegner, right? So Tegner really applies to somebody like this, where it's really high demand. Our age range is from 14 to 84. And that sweet spot is that 30 to 55. That's really where we see that we're doing most of our cases. So we have that, we use this. Let me see if I've got any others. This is a different deck. Yeah, that was the animal piece, which I can come back to now. I don't have it in this deck, but I've got things where I can show you what the CT arthrogram looks like with that integration of the graph. And then a whole host of different joints with the implant in. This happens to be a direct view, and we have probably 20 of those. Challenges is what patient's doing. Well, they don't want to have you come back in and look at it. So this patient here actually had her other knee done. And so that was obviously a vote of credibility, but that's when we were able to take this look.
Do you have a registry? Sorry, I'm asking so many questions. Because if
No,
you
no,
have a
go.
registry like CartiHeal, because they're having the same results with newer technology. And that's where, particularly in the knee, I would be scared as an investor because there's so much new data coming out. And there's
Right.
way less expensive options that are showing the same type of there's various polymers that they're impregnating with bone marrow aspirate concentrate and HA injections, and they're creating a hydrogel that they're injecting, and they're having these same things. So there's a lot of competition in the knee market. In fact, I would stay out of the knee market because there is so much competition in it.
Right. That's a really good point. The thing about it is people aren't addressing the bone, and we really believe that's a key part of it. So you look at Macy, right? You look at all those products are contraindicated for bone involvement, right? And if you look at CartiHeal, when they got their PMA, 2.5 years ago under Agili C. The side by side to us, based on our average coups at the same time, we're more than double we have better numbers by more than double, right? And so it's going to be a certain group, and I gotta believe, and it's not on the market yet. We haven't seen it anywhere. But with that technology, that's got to be a $8,000 or $10,000 plug, I would think. Now, maybe I'm way off on that. So you look at it, and we know how hard it is to get products in and to get the full reimbursement and all of those things, right? The facilities are making money on ours, right? And so that's the area that again, that's a big benefit for us. The knee is a very competitive market, no question about it. And that's the verticals I'm working on are upper extremity and foot and ankle. That's our main focus on that. The sports will come along, and we'll see if we can develop that. But all good input. I appreciate that.
Yeah, good questions. Corey's next, and then Patrick.
Yeah, sorry, I apologize ahead of time if you've already covered this, but my internet was going in and out. So what I would like to know is, so obviously you didn't have a predicate device for this. How long did it take to get through the regulatory process, and where did you do your IDE studies?
The IDN was done at UC Davis. And then the first clearance took about 120 days. The second one took probably about the same. The third one only took about 3 months. Obviously, it's our product. And then this fourth one that we're looking for with the peak, because we are the predicate for that. We expect that to be, hopefully 6 months or less. And these are 510Ks. So it's, that part of it's pretty easy. We have, interesting enough, at Banner Health, you have your VAX packet that you send in, and somebody looked at our predicate on one of our clearances, and it was a headless screw, right? That's the predicate. Well, somebody read that, and they go like, we have lots of headless screws. It's like, it's not the same, but that delayed our acceptance into Banner for sure.
Interesting.
Did I answer your question, Corey? Looks like he's frozen.
He's frozen. All right, Patrick's up.
Thanks. Tom, did I hear you right that initially the product was cleared without the dermal matrix?
Oh yeah. 2 of our clearances was without the dermal matrix.
So was it FDA's understanding, at least at the time, that the implant was supposed to be buried, like countersunk, or
Yep.
was they just sort of assumed that gap would just be just space, or someone would just plug in some random bone graft? Or
So this is the study right here. So you can see at 12 weeks, the coverage was pretty good already, right? At 26, it was fully covered, and that it was stained saffron O for type 2 collagen. And this is only the animal was sacrificed after 6 months. This is before I got here. I'd love to have seen how that type 2 collagen, what it matured to, if it changed, right? Because it could have been that maturation process. There's a lot of confusion on, how do you get to Highland if it's even possible, right? And so I'd love to see what that maturation process was. But this is exactly how it was designed. And by the way, this is with just the titanium. It's not with hydroxyapatite.
And they had no sort of articulation concerns, or that's, they tend to get very spooked by materials and when they're, two surfaces rubbing against each other.
Absolutely. And that's, again, we're buried, right? We're 5 to 6 millimeters below the plate. So we're not in that articular space. I mean, it's like, think about it as like a microfracture, right? I mean, you're not putting an implant in there, but you're causing damage trying to get that blood clot to turn into some sort of fibrocartilage or whatever, right?
It sounds like it's a bone edema solution,
Right.
and you can just kind of, if you want, you can put a cartilage top on it. That's kind of what it sounds like. But bone edemas are what causes all the pain.
Yeah.
And like Tom said, it doesn't show up on X-ray. And if you snap your ACL, everybody's going to have a bone edema. You're going to have a huge bruise. It's
Right.
not going to heal. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's really what it is it decompresses that bone, gets rid of the pain. That's, patient comes in because of pain, right? And so that patient's pain is relieved. And we see the amount of swelling after surgery is much lower than what you're seeing with these other procedures. And our return to activity is about 25% of what you would be doing for an OATS. You don't have to wait for any integration. Right?
Yeah. Once you can put an implant there, share the load.
And you have guys that are, coming out of surgery with one crutch, and by the time they get to the doctor's office, they're walking. And they're getting that range of motion is really good because you have, a lot less swelling.
I think the idea to clear it or to use fracture fixation, what we all kind of think of as fracture fixation devices as the predicates.
Yeah.
That was pretty clever. Whoever thought of that.
Well, that's part of our clearance. And again,
whatever regulatory consultant or whoever thought of that idea, I think that was pretty clever.
Yeah. Thank you.
It makes life in class 2 is a lot easier in class 3.
Yeah, because most people wouldn't hold up a headless screw and then hold up one of your devices and say these are the same. Most people who sort of know orthopedics would not hold those two products up and say, well, this is just another version of this.
Yeah, but that's a value analysis committee, right? You don't know who's there. I love the presentation that Mark gave is that, okay, the business guys, you talk clinical guys, you talk business, right? And so that you could get that picture, but you're not always in those value analysis committees where you could,
but to whoever made that argument to FDA, like good job by them, I think.
Yeah, Mike's done a great job. He's a one-man show too, but he's done a great job for us.
Good to know. So going back to funding, any more here, Mark Maloney's up. Any more thoughts on IPO versus other ways to raise 3 million? Go ahead, Mark.
I had a real good talk. This is not why I raised my hand, but I had a real good talk with Ted earlier this year about the potential of crowdfunding for our compliance company, because we are sort of having the same challenges. But anyway, so I don't really have any great answers there for you. But first of all, I want to apologize. When you started talking, for whatever reason, my phone called you, so it pocket dialed you.
Oh, is that who that was? I've been having all these calls.
So that was a complete, just a weird. I looked down, all of a sudden, I'm calling Thomas. Why? I don't know why. Anyway, when I took over Treese here with my other business, the guy, the original distributor, had focused on podiatry and had really failed miserably. I focused on orthopedic, foot and ankle, and we blew it up.
Yeah.
then they bought us out.
Yep.
The distribution chain between foot and ankle and sports is so different. There's a
Yeah.
lot to be there's a lot to be said for figuring out where the tip of the spear is and just drilling down, whether it's foot and ankle or whether it's knee, sports medicine. And then my last question was, are you doing anything internationally or in Canada?
No, it takes too much money and too much time.
Okay.
We're hoping to hitch us to somebody's wagon that has all the regulatory people to do that and the legal, right? We do have our patents, we have worldwide patents in most countries. So we're papered up nicely. But we haven't even started any of the regulatory. I was really seriously thinking, I've done a lot of business in Australia, and I like Australia because it's a young population that's very active. And so we would fit very well. And so we actually had a deal set up where we could go through, because they don't accept FDA at all. TGA is a final approval, but they only accept CE. So an FDA clearance, you can go to New Zealand and you do 50 patients there, then they'll take the data, right? So it's a lot different than when I did this before down there, but that's a very attractive market to me just because of
That's a good market. Yeah, that's a good market. It pays well. And as Tiger knows, I'm on the board of a cartilage repair company that does real well in Australia and New Zealand. So
yeah.
Thanks.
I'll just chime in and say, avoid crowdfunding, Tom. To stay away from crowdfunding.
Yeah, Ted, that was such a great presentation that you did on crowdfunding. You saved me a lot of energy on that. So thank you. Speaking of commercialization, I have Australia is their distributors over there. They lose product so often because the product gets acquired. Australia is a great place to go. I am in talks with UAE coordinate, and I'm happy to, and distributor, and they may consider an investment in us in exchange for commercialization rights in the UAE, and I'm happy to connect you once we're through that.
That would be great. I went down when the Abraham Accords had been completed. So they had this Abrahamic business circle. And so you had the technology coming in from Israel, you had the money coming in from the Arab countries. It was an outstanding meeting. The problem with it is the amount of money I was looking for, because I had distributorship, I had a bunch of the key docs that were ready to go, but I didn't have the money to do it, right? Because what you would do, what they were asking me to do is set up shop down there. You don't have to manufacture anything, so you'd have your entity down there. That's what they're trying to do is during that diversification. Great guys, but the guys that I came in with, right, they were looking for $100 million, and I'm looking for, at that time I was looking for 3 or 5 at the time. So it just wasn't that interesting. It was cool though. I gotta have coffee with the Emir, so it was kind of cool. I got some pictures of sitting across the way. But also Kuwait. Kuwait was very interesting because it's all Americanized. I mean, when you go there, it looks just like basically like us outside of the calls for prayer throughout the day. A lot of interest there. And what ended up happening is Kuwait really shut down during COVID. And think about it. We launched May of 2020, so right in the heart of that. And so we get down there when I had some investment from Bader Sultan, and they're guys I've done business with in the past have been perfect for us. But by the time they got shut down, because their funding was going to come in January or February, everything was shut down. I mean, they're deporting guys. I mean, it was a real mess. And so that's never, I've never really circled back with those guys. It's probably a good idea to reach back out to Ahmad.
And, Barry literally had the same question that I was going to ask. Are you considering military contracts, Red One Medical? We've talked to them. And then secondly, if having 2 sales forces, like a foot and ankle person is not going to usually be talking to a knee surgeon.
Right.
And so if you can license that out and only focus on one, because distributors very often are not comprehensive. They're getting more comprehensive, but a lot of times they have divisions within and they're
Yeah.
larger distributors. And so somebody that knows the knee doesn't know the foot, and they don't know the others, the contacts. And so they're walking in cold.
Right. Let's,
And Alyssa, where I was actually going was that if there are military applications for this in terms of repair, whatnot, there is military funding through the DoD, and I have a potential contact for you that I'll send you, Thomas, offline, where they do, initial investments in startup companies and then do follow-on investments in the tune of what you're actually looking for. So I don't know if it's a fit, but certainly willing to make the kind of warm introduction.
That would be great. Yeah, we've had a VA contract now, VA DoD and the Indian Health for about 2.5 years. We've got really good business in Tripler, Walter Reed, Fort Meade, I think. So we've penetrated that market. We need to use a Red One though, Alyssa, to your point. I mean, those guys are outstanding. The way they had set it up is that when I first met with Red One, they've got a fixed monthly a fee that we couldn't afford, and there was no commitment on the volumes. I think they're outstanding, but I couldn't, it's too risky for us to put in $150,000 with a group like that without having any volume commitment. So
That was the same thing that we faced as well.
Yeah, but they're great. I mean, their reputation is really outstanding, and that's why they charge so much. They know they're outstanding.
I've got another alternative for you, Tom.
Yeah,
Apiary Medical. I'm actually an investor, and a friend of mine started the company, Chris Hadsel. So I'll send you his contact info. Very connected with DoD and the innovation group at VA.
Yeah, that would be great. That would be outstanding.
Good.
Well, as usual, this is a worthwhile meeting, worthwhile hour, right?
A lot of smart people with a lot of experience, and with 50 people now in the hive mind, and we get 20 show up every week, it's pretty powerful. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Anything else, Tom? You good?
No, I think this has been very helpful, guys. I really appreciate it, and I know you've all been through these things. It's hard when you've checked every box, right? And you get to this point, and then you just don't have the money to go ahead and grow it. And back to just for one last thing, is that I have divided this business up because these distributors, it has to align with their call points. And the problem with the way we have been is that it's the same product for all these different specialties. So you have a distributor that's bringing it in for foot and ankle, and you have somebody who wants to bring it in for upper extremity. It's the same product. So that has to be delineated. And it doesn't matter if it's the same product, as long as it's a different package and different SKUs and different product description, it doesn't matter, right? So you can have those guys fighting over it, because those specialists don't really talk to each other either. So that's what we're trying to do, and that's where the private label would really help us. So
Good. All right. Thanks, guys. Another good Bone Chat. Next week is Brennan at Osseo. All right. Have a great week.
sounds good.
Invite your friends. Invite your friends. Same price for a week.
I like it. Thank you, guys.
Okay. Yeah.